Hi guys, what's going on, and welcome back to another episode of Total War Arena. So we are moving on up the Carthaginian sword infantry line. We are now up to the tier 5 Punic Mercenaries. So I've not quite got these guys fully upgraded yet, but I've been having a good few battles with them and I have been quite enjoying them. I found the sort of introduction of Ad Portas, which is the sort of the tier 5 ultimate commander ability for Hannibal, is really quite good. Initially it gives that almost immediate 100% melee weapon damage increase, which is quite significant, quite a lot. It's almost like a bit like Vengeance. But then after that 60 seconds you get the 200% melee weapon damage increase, and that means every hit you land just does so much damage that you can cut through enemy infantry very ruthlessly. So that's really good. I've been enjoying that. I've still got a few more upgrades to do on them, as I said. Other than that, they play very similar to the previous lines, which was the Libyan recruits. They have a little bit more armour, slightly more increased melee attack and weapon damage, and slight increase in survivability if we compare the stats. Speed-wise, they start off with the same base speed, and some of their equipment, like before, like the other units, increases speed, so they get a plus 4% movement speed from the upgraded body armour that they get. So again, yeah, they play really well, pretty basic standard unit. They're pretty equivalent to the Principes that you get at tier 5, fairly comparable. Other than that, not really a lot to say about them, so let's just hop straight into a battle and see how we get on. So, as is always the way with my battles, I have slightly mixed results. So I start off with these guys, immediately activate Forced March and get moving towards the enemy. So yes, I start pushing up, trying to see what we can see. I'm just kind of looking to see what we get, see if we see any elephants, enemy archers, that sort of thing. Get early spots. I'm prepared to push down through this little gap here if we see that. So as we move up, I see that the enemy has got some tier 4 archers here. I've got nothing else with me, so that causes me to hesitate. We then get the artillery start throwing rocks in, so I think, right, better not head that way for now, because if we meet up against these archers, I'm not going to be able to do anything against them, and I don't really want to go to head with some Principes, which are going to be able to pop Vengeance on me anyway. We took a massive hit though here in my retreat, 12,000 damage from the enemy artillery. That is a really big hit. It shows how effective enemy artillery can actually be in the battle. I think these Punic Mercenaries, the other players using at the same time, realise that they don't want to be out in the open either, so both of us try and take cover in the town. As I'm moving around, I'm looking that a fight's broken out here between sort of equivalent hastati. So I think that it's actually probably, I realise instead of going down there to fight these guys over here, I'm probably best pushing this way. Particularly with the archers and the tier 5 Principes pushing in as well. They probably need some more support. Now I don't quite get why these Principes sort of didn't really get involved. They sort of seem to stop and just spend their time manoeuvring. They could have pushed around the back and got stuck in with these hastati. I think that would have been a better move on their part. So I come in, I kind of want to play quite aggressively because we're taking archer fire, I just want to get stuck into the fight. So I send these guys straight against these Principes. We seem to be kind of reluctant to have a fight for some reason. So that means I get to engage without having a heavy infantry charge into me. I push these guys around to try and force the enemy archers out of the way to stop them shooting at me while I'm manoeuvring. And as I do that, that frees me up to get round behind these hastati. So it's sort of turning into a bit of a melee everywhere. So I'm trying to get these guys in, and at this point I pop my my buff, my determination, which gives me my increased melee defense and attack. So that's good. I was really pleased with that. We get a lot of damage on these hastati nice and early on when we start to whittle them down. Do have sort of get into a bit of trouble here with our Punic Mercenaries. We got attacked on the side, but thankfully with the arrival of friendly reinforcements, these Principes here actually lose morale and rout, and that frees us up to do a really good job. We sort of push into them a little bit. I should have turned here and fought these guys a bit earlier, but there we go, we did that as we crushed that unit of hastati. So this guy, I re-engaged straight back into the hastati and pushed these guys around to try and get that rear flank. By doing that, we should hopefully, I'm hoping to be able to, well, if not kill them, get the rear flank like that to get them to rout, which is what I want to do. We are taking a lot of archer fire though at this time, so that's a bit of a problem for me. But I do notice we've got some friendly cavalry on the way. Oops, as we flick the camera all over the place. So we kill off those hastati, and that allows me to then get back in behind these Principes, causing them to rout, and we start to get a nice amount of damage here. Okay, now we just get to absolutely cut them down, which is what we really want to do. That was quite satisfying. I love it when you get people to rout like that. It's really nice. Let's rack up a lot of damage there, and we actually come out on quite well on that fight. We have taken some casualties across all our units, but considering we had almost the same number of opposition, almost all our allies are still in really good health, and we actually slaughtered a really good proportion of the enemy army there. So I was pretty pleased with that. So I decided I wanted to get moving again. I was particularly concerned as we got grouped up here. We know the enemy still has those 3 units of artillery, and I did not want to get... if he landed a big rock in there, we'd get a lot of kills. So I was conscious of that. So I get Forced March activated again to get my speed straight back up. You know, that's taking us to 4.67 meters a second movement speed, which is pretty quick for heavy infantry. And get pushing straight back down the road again. I hear the occasional rattling shots of light artillery hitting some people, so they're around here somewhere. And I just pushed around this corner. I was tempted to push down this way, maybe I should have done, but I felt these units were kind of a bit too outnumbered and I didn't want to be facing all these units on my own. I just pushed around to get a few kills on the archers, not really necessary, not a particularly good move or anything, I'm just stealing a few kills. It's a bit of a scumbag move, really. So I keep moving. Now this is kind of an interesting choice, for better or for worse, I don't know. So I was assessing that we've got 3 units of enemy javelins coming down here, actually 4 units. 3 tier 5s and a tier 6 velites. They will be able to decimate my units very quickly if they're able to get into me. They are pushing quite aggressively and they have only got 1 unit of legionaries, or 2 units of legionaries in support, sorry. So maybe I should have pushed into them, but instead I decided, well, we'll leave them and just keep pushing on. Decided to push onto their base to try and go for the cap, because I noticed the battle is pretty much neck and neck and it could go either way, and I thought by getting into the cap circle I can sort of force their hand or win by capping. But our friendly allies decided to push back round and actually do quite a good job, because the enemy our friendly cavalry, comes around the back and they're able to sandwich all these guys in the middle, and our allies managed to push into the enemy javelin men very effectively, and that actually worked really well and they managed to slaughter all these guys. All this time I've made my decision. I'm using my forced march to get onto base. I'm trying to get them sort of arrayed back out of the blob. Shouldn't really be running around in a blob. If enemy cavalry or enemy infantry forced to fight now, I'm very vulnerable by being blobbed together like that. But at the same time, our allies are doing a really good job down here of slaughtering these enemy units. And the battle's very slightly starting to turn in our favour now, as we cut these guys down, particularly all these javelins who can't really defend themselves very effectively. Also, it goes to show that the tier 5 Carthaginian cavalry are doing quite a good job in this fight as well. So I push up to here. I'm still a bit worried about artillery. I noticed that the actual enemy heavy artillery is finished, but these light artillery is still in place. So I push this lighter unit round to get some earlier spots and take these units more into cover behind the buildings. Now you'll note, one thing I've done here is I've turned off my forced march. Now I've got to where I want to be. You should always doing that, because forced march makes you more vulnerable to missile fire, reduces your view range and lowers your morale. So by having it off I can see enemies further away and I'm less likely to rout and will be better in combat. So make sure you turn it off once you're not marching across the map, if that makes sense. So I see we've got some friendly tier 4 Hastati coming in to support us, and we've got some any of these wild wolves, the war dogs coming in, tier 5 war dogs, so they could be quite a threat to us. But there's nothing, I don't make any particular moves, I'm just kind of seeing how it pans out for now. I'm conscious that we're getting almost pretty close to being able to cap. By the time these war dogs here, I thought we might stand a chance of actually having capped out. Rather wisely though, they unleashed their dogs early, so I was going to move these guys up, form on off this building so they can't flank me. But these war dogs do a very good charge, which has caused us quite a bit of knockdown on me and immediate damage. So I realised the trouble I'm in, so I'm bringing in this other unit for support. Now, so at this point in the battle, I'm focusing on this. So I know I've got this unit of tier 5, sort of what effectively a light barbarian infantry moving in as well, and these war dogs are overwhelming, so I want to move in to support that. But I also want to preserve the cap points I've got with this unit, so I don't commit it straight away, which is probably an error. So these guys get stuck straight into the fight, which is kind of good. I activate my determination and then I activate Ad Portas. So this gives me the plus 100% melee weapon damage. You see my weapon damage is shooting up, 230 there, keeps rising, keeps getting higher as we rack up all these damage points. And you can see now the dog's health is really starting to rapidly get cut down as our units rack up so many damage points. And you can see my aggression points will really start to shoot up now. So at this point I decided, well, I've lost my aggression points, there's no point sticking there, so I might as well get stuck in with this unit as well, my full health unit, my commander unit. And I also get stuck in activate determination and my at the gates to give me my melee weapon damage increase. So our melee weapon damage starts to really shoot up. If you look at this other guy, we're up to 293, almost 300 weapon damage now. So starting to get really high, getting a lot of damage in. So you see we start to cut down these dogs really quickly, how quickly they start to plummet. You can see the amount of aggression points we're getting is just shooting up. because we're doing so much damage. Thankfully, some of our team back at our base managed to decap on these tier 5 warriors, which is a good move, and thankfully we've got enough support moving in now, so I'm confident that they should be able to at least delay the capture of our base. The battle's about drawn, so my objective is just to win this individual fight we've got going on here. So we get stuck in, we start to slaughter these dogs. These wild wolves just get cut down so quickly because of the amount of damage my guys are now doing. You know, well over 300 weapon damage per hit. Then we start to get hit by these light artillery. 2 of them are setting up here to shoot down into me. I hadn't noticed that a sneaky one is set up behind me as well. It's actually really quite a good play on there because it means they sort of flanked us, and I hadn't actually noticed that at the time. So I do take a bit of damage for them. Now I'm conscious here, you'll see here, I'm really trying to play very aggressively because if I'm out of combat for more than 4 seconds, then my Ad Portas, my 100% damage modifier will drop off, and it's 200 seconds before I can reactivate it. So I really want to re-engage with these wild wolves, which we do, and you just see, look at how much damage we rack up. It just absolutely slaughters them at 7,000, 8,000, up to 10,000 already. It just cuts them down, and that's it. They just utterly slaughter. It shows how effective that damage is. And now we're here. We've just hit the discipline lost after 60 seconds with Ad Portas. We tick into the next phase, and now we get plus 200% melee weapon damage. Look at my aggression, 866 at tier 5. Each hit from one of my swordsmen does 563 melee weapons damage. That's insane. Now that is just absolutely ridiculous. It's just amazing. These guys down here, I start to move back into cover, and I try and get into a fight with these guys. I don't think I make it in time, and unfortunately I lose that 200% weapon bonus because I'm out of combat. But when you hit that 200%, the amount of weapon damage you do is just colossal. You never want to be facing off against these people where in that discipline loss mode, because the amount of damage they'll just cut through you so effectively, far more effectively than Vengeance. Because just the sheer amount of weapons damage, because Vengeance is also in part focused on weapon attack, which is sort of the chance to land hits rather than just the ability to actually cause damage. But still, while we've lost that ability, these are still a very capable combat unit, and against the lighter barbarian war dog warriors, that's not really a threat to me. The light artillery kind of tries to get away, but thankfully the cavalry have enough sense to actually attack the stakes rather than engaging them. So they try and do that. I noticed behind us our cavalry managed to also attack and destroy that flanking scorpion. So we cut down what's left of these war dogs. Obviously our aggression points out are doing really well here. So we continue to cut down these guys here, and we've really now managed to tip the battle in our favour by killing off these remaining units, and then we're able to get engaged in these scorpions. We're able to give pursuit. Obviously passing through the stakes from behind, going through them is absolutely fine. You don't take any losses doing that, so I don't mind. At this point I realised I activated Forced March to give me the extra movement speed, and our cavalry does a good job of knocking these guys down, and I push into them. Now one perhaps quick tip or point of note, I'm actually clicking through them. I'm sending my units through them. If I just click and told them to attack, most of my infantry would stop here and try and attack these outer men, whereas while they're all knocked down I want to push into them as much as possible. So I'm telling my infantry to pass through. See, I'm passing through, and then I stop and attack, and that means that I'm sort of much more in and amongst the enemy when my units stop, and they can't really escape quite so easily. So then we cut a lot of them down, and I think this player gives up at this point because he doesn't even try and run away anymore. He can't be bothered. So we cut down these few remaining enemies. So that was really pleased. I was pleased with that. I think we did quite a good job there, and we really did help win this enemy cap point with the amount of enemies that came against us. Particularly with our Ad Portas, which I think allows us to take on and defeat those war dogs. I think without that we would really have struggled in this fight at the beginning down here, and we would have probably lost. Obviously, always watch out for stakes. Some of them, even though it looks like most of them have been taken down, which they have, some are still remaining. If you run into them, you will take casualties, so you've got to watch out for that. And that is about it for the rest of this interesting part of this video. Just stick it on fast forward. We cut down everyone else down here, so we just returned to the base to sit into the cap circle. I didn't fancy running all the way back down to try and chase some phalanxmen on the other end of the base. But yes, just to say, I highly recommend these units. They really are good fun. The Ad Portas is an amazing ability. I really think it has the potential to actually rival Vengeance once it's properly established. So yeah, well worth a playthrough and to try it out. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video. In the end, we ended up with about 7,000 points. We got 4,300 aggression points, and we also got quite a few cap points as well, because we very nearly capped them out at the start. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a like. Let me know what you think about these Punic Mercenaries in the comments down below. Have you fought against Ad Portas? If you have you found it pretty hard to deal with? Or have you been using it and enjoying playing with it? So let me know in the comments. Thanks guys, and I shall see you all on the next video.